Welcome to Wheelock's Latin, Chapter 14. In this chapter, we learn the third declension I-stem endings. These are only slightly different from the third declension endings you learned in Chapter 7. Those ones we call consonant stems. On the next slide, I'll tell you how to tell the difference between a consonant stem and an I-stem. So let's review the consonant stem endings. Rex, regis, regi, regem, rege, reges, regem, regum, regibus, reges, regibus. This applies to masculine and feminine nouns, consonant stems, third declension. The new forms are mostly the same. In the singular, there's no changes. Kiwis, kiwis, kiwi, kiwem, kiwe. In the plural, kiwes, and then kiwium with an I before the um. Kiwibus, kiwes. An alternate form of kiwes, the accusative plural, is kiwis. It's very common in real Latin and not so common in this Wheelock textbook. And then ablative plural, kiwibus. In the neuter, let's review a consonant stem learned in Chapter 7. So tempus, temporis, tempori, tempus, tempore, tempora, temporum, temporibus, tempora, and temporibus. The new endings have a few more differences than the masculine and feminine. So mare, maris, mari, mare are the same, but then in the ablative singular, long I instead of short E, so mari. In the nominative plural, maria with an I before the A, because the second to last syllable is short, the accent goes on the first syllable, Maria, as opposed to the English name Maria with the accent on the second to last syllable. The genitive plural, Mariam, has the I before the um, then maribus, maria, and maribus. So the form endings in blue are the ones that are different from the consonant stems that we learned in Chapter 7. The next question you probably want to know is, how do you know if a particular third declension noun is going to follow the consonant stem pattern or the I stem pattern? The answer to that is in the next slide. So, if you look at masculine and feminine nouns, if you look at the first two parts of the dictionary entry, if they have equal numbers of syllables, usually 2, in the nominative and the genitive, we call this parasyllabic, meaning equal numbers of syllables. So for masculine and feminine nouns that are parasyllabic, those are I stems. Examples are hostis, hostis. So you recall that the dictionary entry is nominative singular, comma, genitive singular, comma, gender. And the nominative and genitive singular both have 2 syllables. So this is parasyllabic, and this is an I stem, and this follows the new I stem patterns. Likewise, nawis, nawis, feminine meaning ship, and nubes, nubis, feminine meaning cloud. Second rule, if a masculine and feminine noun has the base, which is another word for stem, ending in 2 consonants, then that masculine or feminine noun will follow the I stem pattern. Usually, if the base ends in 2 consonants, you will see the nominative singular ending in either X or S. So for example, urps, urbis, if you go to the second part of the dictionary entry, the genitive singular, and you lop off the IS, you get the stem urb. That stem or base, urb, ends in 2 consonants, RB. Therefore, this is an I stem noun, and it follows the I stem endings learned in this chapter. Example, nox, noctis. Go to the genitive singular. The stem or base is noct. The nominative ends in X, stem noct, N-O-C-T, double consonant, that is an I stem. The third kind of noun that follows the I stem pattern is neuter nouns, any of them where the nominative ends in AL, AR, or E. So for example, animal, animalis, neuter, or exemplar, exemplaris, neuter. Any nouns that follow any of those 3 rules, third declension nouns following those 3 rules, are I stems, and they will have the new endings that we learned in this chapter. So that means for masculine and feminine, the genitive plural will end in ium, ium, and an alternative form of the accusative plural is long is. For neuter nouns, if they are an I stem, that means they'll have an ablative singular in I, a nominative plural in IA, and a genitive plural in IUM. Let's look now for a second at this slightly irregular noun, wees. The nominative is wees. The genitive is wees, and it's shown here in parentheses because it rarely, if ever, occurs in real Latin. This noun means force. The dative, likewise, rarely, if ever, shows up in Latin, we. The accusative is vim, V-I-M, and the ablative is V long I. So in this respect, it behaves more or less like a third declension I stem. The plural is vires. There should be a long mark over that E. The stem or base is vir, V-I-R, and then the ending is es. If you use that stem for the rest of them, you get virium, viribus, vires, and viribus. So as I mentioned, it behaves like a third declension I stem. You can see in the accusative singular, it's whim. Most of the time we're used to seeing em, but this one, the E disappears and it's vim, just whim. Ablative singular, we. In that respect, it's more like a neuter I stem than a masculine feminine I stem. So those two in purple are the slightly unusual ones. Other than that, everything is what you would expect from a third declension I stem. The endings in the plural eum, ibus, ace, and ibus. Don't confuse this noun with weary, which means man, and is a regular noun of the second declension. Because it's second declension, the rest of the forms are wiro, wirum, wiro, weary, wirorum, wiris, wiros, wiris. In the singular, o is exactly what you'd expect for second declension endings. And in the plural, you can see the stem wir throughout with the second declension endings e, orum, is, os, is. Last up in this chapter is some new uses of the ablative. But first, let's review our old uses of the ablative. We've seen it with prepositions indicating place where. So, for example, in casa, place where means in the house. Sub casa, place where means under the house. Pro casa, place where means in front of or before the house. Post casa, place where means behind the house. We've also seen the ablative with prepositions indicating place from which or separation. So we've seen it with a and ab, meaning away from. There's another very different meaning of this preposition, which is by, and it does not hold that connotation of place from which or separation, but it still uses the ablative. Ex means out of, and it takes the ablative. Sine means without, that shows separation, takes the ablative. De can mean down from, that shows you place from which, takes the ablative. There's another meaning of de, meaning concern or about, does not include any connotations of place from which or separation, but it does still take the ablative when it means concerning or about. We've also seen the ablative with a preposition showing accompaniment. This is the preposition cum, meaning with. So cum amicis means with friends. And then we've also seen the ablative with a preposition indicating manner, like cum cura means with care, or cum virtute means with virtue. The new one that we're going to learn today is the ablative of means or instrument, and it does not take a preposition. So let's go to the next slide. The ablative of means or instrument does not take a preposition. There are more uses of the ablative that do not take the preposition, and we will learn them throughout this textbook. But for today, just means and instrument. Ablative of means or instrument answers the question, by means of what? With what? So in the sample sentence, litera stilo scripsit, he or she wrote a letter with a stylus, answers the question, with what? With a stylus. Cives pecunia vicit, he or she conquered the citizens with money, answers the question, with what? By means of what? In the sample sentence, id meis oculis vidit, I saw it with my own eyes. By what means did I see it? By means of my own eyes. Suis laboribus urbem conservavit, he saved the city by his own labor. By what means did he save the city? By means of his own labor. So the question you have to ask yourself, if you're translating from Latin to English, with is often a very good translation of the ablative without a preposition. But if you're going the other direction and you're trying to compose Latin and your English sentence says with, then you have to ask yourself, does with express means or instrument? Does it answer the question by means of what? If so, then translate it in the ablative without a preposition. Does with in the English sentence mean manner or accompaniment? With whom? In the company of whom? Did somebody do something? Then in that case, you use the preposition cum plus the ablative. That's it for now. See you next time.